All right, hi everyone. Um, hope you're all doing well. Um, and I hope that you can hear me. Yeah. Okay. Um, excuse me. Oh, I missed my mute there. Sorry. Hopefully my voice holds up for this call. Um, but here we go. Um, the This is a basic cart page that I've set up. You can click add to cart and it will add the item to the cart. So if I add bicycle roller skates, it adds it. And as you can see, the total increases with it. And then if I click checkout, I get taken to a different page where I can see the items in my cart. Um, Limitations on this. So if I click bicycle and I add bicycle again, I can just keep adding the bicycle. It doesn't check the quantity. So maybe we can get to that in a different video at some stage. But for now, that's the one of the limitations. Another limitation, which should be fairly easy to fix, is that if I go back here, it doesn't show me my cart. I start a new cart, so you could keep track of that. But anyway, hopefully this is useful about seeing how some of it can be tackled, and you can go ahead and kind of add additional functionality to it. All right, I'm just going to. I'll be working in VS Code rather than CodePen today. The reason for that is just that I would prefer to do that. Oh, because I'm doing it in 2 pages. Because obviously I can't share 2 CodePen pages. Um, all right. Let me just quickly get a folder here. Um, okay. Sorry, a little bit scattered today. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'll create a file here let's call it products.html. Then also create some folders. Create one for CSS. Create one for JavaScript. And I'll create another HTML here called cart.html. And cool. So let's start with the products page. So let's have a basic product here. I call this site Retro Rollers. What a nice name. And this is the products page. Okay, inside of my products page, I'm going to have a place to put my products. Oh, I'll just keep that lowercase. And then I'm going to have somewhere for my cart. And inside the cart, I'm going to have a cart list. And I'll have a place for the total. Those all matched up? No, that's... And it can say total in it. And then I'll have a link to check out. And that will go to the cart page. And I'll say checkout. And then finally we'll have a script tag here. And we'll set the source. Well, we don't have actually created that file yet. So let's call it products.js. And I'll set that to be like that. Okay, so let's quickly open that in live server. Okay. Not exactly the most thrilling of pages just yet, but we'll get there. Okay, the next thing I want to do quickly is I just want to create a list of products. So inside my JavaScript folder, and create a new folder of constants. Now, usually we'd probably keep this. This would be coming from an API, so we'd be making a call to the API to get a list of products. But I didn't do that here. So I'm just gonna call this product list.javascript. And I'm just gonna put in an array here, which I'll be able to load onto the page. What I want to do is I want to export this array, and so I can use it and import it on this page. So I'm going to say that I'm exporting the product array, and then I'm going to import it in my other page. So I'm going to say import. I'm doing a little bit of JavaScript first so that we can at least have something to work with on the page, and we'll get to the styling of it. So I'm going to import that product array from, and I'm going to import it from constants, and it's called product list.javascript. And we can just console log it to see that it's coming through. There'll be one extra thing we're going to need to do. So if we look in our console, it won't be coming through because we haven't set the script tag in our products.html to be type of module. So set that to be type module, and now we can get our array. Right, so there's our array now coming through. Maybe I'll try. So it's trying to be able to give you as much. All right, so now we have that coming through onto the page. We can loop over it. So let's do that. So you can say that product array dot for each. We'll call it product. Makes sense. And we just need to target the products element. So we'll create a const here, and I'll call it products container. Right, and then we'll say inner HTML plus equals, and we'll create the HTML we want to add to the page. So I'm going to say that I want a div class of product. It's an h2 with the product name. So it's product, and I can check here. So there's an item. So I'll look at that and I'll say that it's called name is the property that I want. So I'll say product dot name. I'll add a description as well. So a paragraph, and again, I'll just add that variable for the description, and it's called product.description. Close the paragraph, and I'll add an image here. I'll first show you what happens if I use an image source like this. Image. I can just add some alt text there and say that it should be the product.name. And can add the price. Oh. And there's the variable. And lastly, we'll have a button. And I'll set that to have a class of product dash button. I'll say add to cart. Okay. So now that creates a whole bunch of images and the products on the page, which is cool. Now it needs a bit of styling, so let's work in a little bit of CSS, and then we'll come back to the JavaScript. All right, I haven't actually added styles.css. I just need a link to it from here. Just a little thing, maybe I've said this before, but if VS Code, so here it gives me suggestions for the file path, right? Which is nice. So I can just click CSS styles.css. But if when it's doing that, it's putting a / in front there, then just make sure that you either remove it or you can install an extension called Path IntelliSense, which will make sure that it's giving you that right file path. Because quite often I see style sheets or links to style sheets that look like that. And the problem there is it won't always work. So it'll only work if you're running it on a server, but not if I just run it locally, for example, it wouldn't work. Okay, so there's my style sheet. And then let's go into styles. Actually, I also want to quickly add, I've got a link to a Google font. Copy that. Now you'll note that I put it above my style sheet because I want it to, I first want to load the font before I start working with it. So that's just something, it's important the way that you order it. The browser is pretty smart though, and it will often fix that, but it is still fixing something that should still be written the correct way. All right, let's look in the styles.css. First thing I have is I have a font family on my body element. Sometimes I see people don't set a font on their body element, and it means that some text doesn't get styled. Right, so now it's that Oxygen font that's coming through, and that Oxygen is coming from Google Fonts. Next, I'll set my products to display grid, and I'll set grid, template columns, 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. And so that creates a 3-column layout like that. Yeah. Okay, and then I'll set a max width of 800 pixels and a margin of 0 auto. So again, let's just quickly look at that. It's not quite what I want. Let me just have a look and see why it's not giving me what I want. Clearly there's some, oh, it's because of the cart is being taken into account. I'll deal with that now. Okay, so we can just have a look at the cart. So I'm going to set my cart to have position fixed, which should resolve that issue. All right, let's carry on going through this. The next thing I want to work with is my product, the individual product. So I'm going to set that to have a margin of 20 pixels. And I'm going to set it to have a background of EF. That. And I'm going to add a border radius of 20 pixels, 0 pixels, right? And what that does is it gives me rounded corners on the left, top left and bottom right, but it gives me a straight traditional border kind of on the other side. So it looks all right. And let's just add some padding here of 20 pixels. Okay, so that's still giving us issues there, but we'll come back to it. Okay, so that's that. Next thing is that so let me quickly cover something. Just the reason that I was speaking about the images. So if I had to have an image of a different, let's say that image. Okay. So if I had to take that image and add that as one of my product images. So if I went to here, I had to bizarrely decide to change that. It would certainly look quite different to the other pages. They wouldn't have all the same ratios and things like that. So what I can rather do instead of doing that, let me just change that back. Because I won't always know what format or what size the image is going to come back. Can often be a more useful option to, instead of adding an image like that, to rather add it as a background image. So obviously it does matter about semantics, and so I guess you can weigh up the value of the semantics there in terms of your kind of how important that semantics is there, whether it should be a inline image or a background image. But this is just perhaps a slightly neater way of being able to make sure that the ratios of your images don't cause you any problems. Whoops. Okay, and then I'll just set some styles on this product image. and I'll set it to background size of cover and a height of 100 pixels. Okay, I seem to have an error. Let's have a quick look at why I'm getting that error. Okay, maybe it doesn't like those quotation marks. So let's have a look there, and we can just take, it's probably that which it doesn't like, that the URL doesn't get closed. And then the style. All right, there we go. Now that's coming through. Although the price is on the image, so clearly I have made some error there. I haven't closed this div. There we go. Okay, now my HTML looks correct. So if you're ever getting problems with your JavaScript and you don't know why is this looking weird, a good place, or why isn't it coming through, just open your DevTools and have a look and see. So you can actually see what HTML is being generated by the JavaScript that you're running. Okay, let's keep going. The next thing, I'll just change the button quickly. I'm just going to copy the styling there because I don't know if we need to talk over that. It's orange. Now you can see that there's an issue here where the justification is off. You don't get it. There it's fine. So we could look to handle that in some way. I guess we could say that the product, we could set it to display flex direction column, and then we can set it to justify content, but space between. There we go. So now it's just a little bit neater, so that description doesn't cause issues when that's only on one line. Okay. Also, when I hover over this button, as you can see, nothing changes, which isn't good from a UX perspective, because we want the user to know, hey, this is a place where you can take an action. So let's we can just set that to product button, hover, and then we can just change the cursor to pointer. Right, so now when the user hovers over it, it changes the cursor to the kind of pointing hand rather than the arrow. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is let's work on the cart itself. So the cart, I think I started on working on the cart, so let's just bring that down here. I'm going to add a border of 1px solid green. I'm going to add a max width of 600 pixels, margin of auto. Let me move my position fixed to here. And I'm going to set it to be 50 pixels off the right and 50 pixels off the top. I actually want a min width as well on here, so I'm going to set a min width of 200 pixels. And I'm going to add a padding of 20 pixels. Okay. All right, so that it's going to look better on. So this is how I would have it on desktop, but maybe seeing as we are working here kind of in a half screen, I can have it. I'll have it further down. So maybe we have this. Maybe we have it to be left 50 pixels and bottom 50 pixels, right? So there we can see that. Maybe 100 pixels. Taking it. Let's say 200 pixels, right? So there's the cart. Now kind of easy for us to see. All right. I think we'll come back to styling elements inside the cart once we start adding elements to it. So we'll come back to the styling inside the cart. Right, let's look at how we can start adding products to a cart. So the first thing we want to do, let me close that. So now we've added our elements to the page. I want to be able to now select these elements. So I'll select them. Documents. Query selector. And well, then just buttons. So I'll select all the buttons. Buttons for each. Run a function. And the function that I want to run is I want to listen for a click. So I'll say button on click equals function event. The event is a parameter there. And let's say console.log event.target. Okay, let's open the console. Nothing's happening. We need to select all. Sorry, query selector all. So there I was only selecting a single button, and that's an object from the node list. So now I'm actually selecting all of them, right? And there, when I click that, I can get the details about the event that happened on that button. Cool. What I'd like now is in my HTML that I generate, I'm going to add a data attribute. So I'm going to say data dash product. So I'm going to call my data attribute product. And I'm going to set it equal to the product.id. Right, so if we look in the product list here, we can see that each of the products has its own ID. And so I'm going to say, I'll just log out event.targets.set. And there it's product 1, that's product 2, and product 3. So now if I had to select I get 1. Sorry, it's not formatted correctly. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. Right, you see that all coming through in the console there. And so now what that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to know which item has been clicked by the user. And it will allow me to then look through my product array and to find that item. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an array that I'm going to push that to. All right, hopefully that makes sense. We'll see as we go. So what I want to do is I'm going to create an array. I'm going to say let cart array equals an empty array. And I'm going to push things to this array. So we can try push value. We can push this, right? And I'll just have a console log of this cart array each time it gets clicked, so we can have a look and see how that cart array is changing over time. Okay, so if I hit there, it's added item 1. There I've added item 3. Now I've added item 2, item 3, item 1. So you can see how the array, let me zoom in again, how the array is changing each time. Okay, but I don't just want to know whether the ID is 1, 3, 2, whatever. What I'd like is to be able to find the data about that element and put that in my array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable here, and I'll call it item to add. So the item that I want to add to the cart. And then I'm going to say look in product array and find. I'm going to use the find method and find. I'm going to call it an item. And that item should have an item.id that is equal to that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to just comment that out for now. And we can see if we can manage to get that item to add. Okay, so let's have a look. So if I click 1, it now looks inside of this product list and it finds the item with an ID of 1, and then it assigns it to this variable here, right? So if I click this one that has an ID of 3, okay, you can see it has an ID of 3 there. I look at my product list, it sees there's an item with 3, and it assigns it to that variable there. Okay, so what that means is that we can push this new item to add to our cart array. So now we're going to push item to add, and we'll log out this cart array. Right, so if I hit bicycle, it now adds bicycle to the array. If I add roller skates, now there's 2 objects inside my array. The first one was bicycle, and the next one is roller skates. And now I have 3. And as I showed at the beginning, you can add multiple of the same one. So you can have bicycle, roller skates, skateboard, skateboard, skateboard. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do, so that's great. And we can now, we now have this array that we can work with, and we can show it in our cart. So instead of now logging it out, I'm going to call another function, and I'm going to create a function down here called function show cart. And it's going to take in parameter called cart array, and I'm just going to call it, I mean, I could call this anything actually. Maybe I'll just call this cart items just to, so we can see the difference between the arguments and the parameter. And I'm going to call the function, and I'm going to add cart array. Okay. Now what I can do here is, well, first thing I want to do is I want to hide the cart. So let's quickly do that. So we'll set the cart to display none. So now it's not there. And then when it gets added, we'll say Let me select the cart first. Cart, and I think it is a class of cart. Let me just double check that. It's called cart, yep. And so I'll set cart.style style.display equals block. Right, so I click add to cart. It then calls the show cart function, and we now show the cart. Now, inside of the cart, I have a list of cart items. So I need to select that element as well. So let me just go up here. All right, now it's called cart list instead of cart. And I'll set the variable to cart list. And all right, let me add the items first, and then we can have a look. So we'll say that we've got this cart items array, which we passed in here on line 25. So we'll say cart items dot for each cart element. And then I'll say that I want the cart list dot inner HTML to have div with class of cart item. Inside of that, there's an H4 and the cart element dot name. Let's just do that for now. Didn't close that. There we go. Oh. Okay, so let's see if that works. So if we hit bicycle, it's not working. All right, let me see why it's not working. There's a typo. Luckily, and there's I think it was that typo there, but let's have a look. And you are correct. There is another error there. That's cart item. Yeah, sorry, div isn't said correctly. Right, so now I see bicycle, and now it says bicycle skateboard, because I need to clear what's in this cart list every time. Right, so we'll just set this to be cart list dot inner HTML equals nothing. Right, so there we have bicycle, and then we have bicycle skateboard, and bicycle and roller skates. Okay, so that's now adding that to the page. Let's also let's add image here, and card element dot image. I'll just add alt text here. Add class of like that. All right. So now if we okay, those images are getting huge. maybe what we can do is we'll just do the background image like we did before. So let's do that, I think. Except I'm going to call it cart image. And let's quickly add some styling there for cart image. And I'm going to set that to have, let's say, a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. And let's add a border radius of 50%. I've broken it somewhere. Let's have a look. Product is not defined. Oh, whoops. So when I copied that, this is supposed to be card element. And there we can see it now coming through. I just need to set this to now have a background size of cover. And there we can see the images coming through. Let me just set this cart to have a background of white. Okay, so they're the carts. Right, so then the next thing, sorry, Glenn's asked the question there, what I do in a state manner, every time you click add to cart, you create a new object, push it in an array, and then loop the array. So that's similar to what I'm doing now. Yeah, so I'm going to go on now to talk about local storage and adding the array that I've created into local storage. Let's quickly just finish up on the cart. So I just want to finish the total, and then we'll start looking at adding it to local storage. So the next thing I need to do here is work with the total. So when I'm showing the cart, I'll have a total. And the first time it runs, it can be a total of 0. And inside my for each, I'll increase the total every time by the cart element price. And then when that's finished running, so once the for each is finished, look at adding in the total total variable there. Okay. Right, so there's I haven't selected this total yet, sorry. So there's total, and I'm calling it total container. Okay, so the price of the bicycle is 400. It's 400, right? Plus the 250, now it takes it to 650, plus and then the 150 takes it to 800. Okay. Right, so then the next thing I want to do is I want to, when I finished with the cart, so once I've got the cart array, I'm going to set it to local storage. So I'm going to say local storage dot set item and set it to have a name of cart list, and then JSON dot stringify, because what I've got is a array at the moment. but it needs to get stored as a string in my local storage. All right. So now if I add bicycle and skateboard, let's have a look inside my local storage. And there's my local storage. And I can see my cart list, and they're coming through there. Sorry, it's a bit messy. But there's bicycle and there's skateboard now stored in my local storage inside this array. Okay, so I've got that array there. And then that array I can then get on the cart page. Okay, so now when I hit checkout, it takes me to the cart page. I can add a little bit of styling, which I did for the checkout button. Not that it matters too much, because the main focus here is just kind of on local storage. And maybe we'll set the cart. So instead of setting it to display block, we can set this to display flex. And we'll just set the flex direction to be column. That just looks a little bit neater there. Okay, so now let's handle what happens when we click checkout and we move to the next page. I'm just going to copy the HTML here. And let's go across to cart.html. And I'll just strip out that, and we'll look at, create a new file here called cart.js. And we can work with that. In my cart HTML, I'm going to create call it a main, and we'll give it a class of cart page. Inside our main, let's have a div class cart list, and we'll have our total there. Class equals total. And let's link that to the JS. Okay. First things first, let's get the whatever's in local storage. So what we can do is let's create a const of cart items. And first, let's have a look at local storage dot get item. So you can run this method on local storage. So here we set it to set the item in local storage. And now we're going to get the item from local storage. And I'm looking for something called cart list, and we'll console log that out. Now that's a string, which isn't quite what we want. What we want is actually an actual array that we can work with. And so what we can do is we can parse it. So we can say JSON.parse. And now what we get back is parsed back to being an array. So it isn't a string anymore. Because here we had to take the array and then we had to stringify it. So we had to turn it into a string so that we could set that in local storage. And then on the other side of it, we then need to parse it and kind of unstringify it and turn it back into an array. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of there. Now I'd like to get the cart container. So I'll say cart container. And that is query selector cart dash list. And also just get the total as well. Again, I'll let the total equal 0, and then I'm going to loop over the cart items. So I'll say cart items dot for each, and I'll just set somehow I prefer it. So function with cart element again, maybe a better variable name there, and again we'll say cart container dot inner HTML plus equals, and we can add the same. Let's just go here and we'll grab that. Go to carts. Here we are. Sorry, that should be total container. So let me see what's going wrong. Cart items dot for each. And there it's getting the bicycle. So if I go back here, if I add, let's add all 3, and then all 3 come through. Okay, we haven't handled the total yet, but again, it's exactly the same as we had it before. We'll just set the total to increase by every cart element dot price. And then once the for each is finished running, set the total container HTML to equal total variable there. Right, so there it comes back as 800. Again, now if we had to, let's say, add bicycle and skateboard, so that's 550. And then the correct total comes through there. I can add a little bit of styling for the cart. Let's do it for the cart page. There's just a bit of styling for the cart page. And let's add some styling for the cart item. So maybe that can just drop down a little bit. Play around with the styling. Okay, so let me just edit the styles here. And I'll just set that to a right of 50 pixels and a top of 50 pixels. Again, you would edit this using media queries and things like that. But let's have a look what happens. Right, so we click add to cart and it adds the bicycle. That bicycle then goes into an array. That array then gets stored in local storage. So if I look at my local storage, I can see that that now gets stored there. It gets turned into a string so that it can be stored in my local storage. Then when I click checkout, it comes across to this page, then takes that array out of local storage, turns it into an array again, and displays it on the page. All right, there's not much more to it. There's lots that you can do and add to it. So things like adding quantity so that you don't have the same item being added. Thanks. Cool. Hopefully that's been useful. The nice things to see, I think, on this tutorial is the use of local storage. So the local storage.set item, and that allows me to use it between different pages. The fact that I need to stringify the array first, and then on the next page, I need to unstringify it or parse it, and then I can use it again. So the looping should be fairly easy to follow, but it's the kind of how it gets stored that's important. And the other thing to also note is this find method. So here I'm using the find method to be able to find the element in this product list and then add that. So instead of my array just having an ID, it now has the whole object. Obviously, you can do it a different way. There's lots of different ways of doing lots of these things in JavaScript. And I might want to change some of the things that I've done here so that I can improve the functionality, say like that quantity, like handling that in some way would be good, because that doesn't look as appealing, whereas I think a user would more easily understand I've clicked bicycle and then there's a quantity. All right, but maybe something to extend later. I was speaking with James, who's going to take us through the game next week. He's going to talk us through how he built the game. Hopefully that all comes together. But he mentioned to me that it might be better if we hold the calls 1 hour earlier because of kindergarten closing earlier during COVID or something like that. So if there's a better time that we can be having these sessions, then please let me know, because obviously I want the most number of people to come join. So if there's anything like that where I don't know, I mean, it's 2 o'clock my time is the same as 1 o'clock is the same as 11 o'clock. So if there's better times to have this, then do please let me know. All right. Are there any other questions? All right. If there's no more questions, hopefully I answered your question there, Glenn. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. All right. Well, then I think we can end it there.